Juliettes' special surprise. It was springtime on the island of New Florida, and the trains were working really hard on the tracks. Control cars operate passenger trains backwards, and women trains carry machinery products, and some Amtrak trains going long distances divide, like the Lakeshore Limited, of course. The Northeast Corridor is an electrified line in the United States going from Boston, Massachusetts to Washington, D.C., United States capital. A monstrosity hauler is a large woman train. It carries lots of things that people need that are far away. And that is why they're really useful indeed. Multiple products on board can hold lots of weight because the monstrosity hauler woman locomotive is the most important thing to have. Because a monstrosity hauler is a big woman train. Juliette was delivering concrete culverts to Farmer McColl's farm on the island of Sodor. She was being really useful. After her load was complete, a brand new engine and brake van arrived. "It's very nice to meet you, Juliette. My name is Imogen," she said. "And I'm Barrett the brake van," he said. "Nice to meet you," said Imogen. "You must be Juliette." "Of course I'm Juliette," Juliette said. "We have a freight train to collect." "If you're into it," said Barrett, and they steamed off to the yard. Juliette and Imogen buffered up to the freight cars, and Maggie shunted the rest of the cars behind. "Off you go now," puffed Maggie. "Woman train is ready to go." And the monstrosity hauler steamed out of the yard. They clattered through the mountains to be really useful. "We'll give ourselves an indie task," laughed the little-some trucks. Then they rumbled over the bridge. "Mr. Cakester is off island today," Juliette said, "so I have to run it until he returns." and they steamed through the station. Really useful is what I am, said Imogen. I hope another engine new shows up, puffed Juliette. Over on the grade crossing, a tank truck, some cars were driving over, and when Imogen blasted out her whistle, the electrical current went through her wheels, and the electricity, and the gates began to come down. And the cars and trucks started to wait at the gates as the train went over. Vroom, vroom, déjà vu, said Juliette as they clattered along. Just as everyone knows, vehicles with hazardous materials and passengers stop at all railroad crossings. And up ahead was a tunnel. Imogen turned on her lamp. Being new is what you are, because it's important to have the lights on in the tunnel, because that's the rule Mr. Cakester approves of, Imogen said. And her lamp shone bright in the tunnel. All the horsepower is important, said Imogen. Then there was trouble. A train full of hazardous materials was stuck on the tracks. And it was waiting at a signal for a streetcar to pass. And little did the guard know that Imogen was right behind them. Imogen and Juliette were behind schedule, so they had to make up for lost time. Look out! Called Juliette. There's a freight train! Imogen's driver slammed the brakes on. But her wheels slipped on the rails. It was too late. Luckily, no one was hurt or worse. But the rear cars and Barrett stayed on the tracks, and Imogen and Juliette were derailed. Sorry about that, they both said. So I was the special surprise after all, and I'm sorry for making a mistake, she said. That evening, the engines were in the sheds with Imogen. We've heard all about Imogen and the crash, puffed Thomas. Then can you Imogen that? Laughed Percy. The engines laughed, and it was dark at night. Then a raging thunderstorm rolled in. Wind was blowing very strong, the speed of 1,000 miles an hour, and the engines were asleep. I hope nothing gets wiped out, puffed Amandine, because that would be awful. You're exactly right, puffed Juliette, but we liked Thomas's joke. The both engines were asleep. Early the next morning, the storm had passed, and Amandine, Juliette, and Imogen steamed out of the sheds to start their work. Imogen is good at being really useful, and she hopes there would nothing be bad in the future.